We are a Sydney-based cybersecurity software company, and it's a pleasure to be here today talking to you. Hope you all find the sessions today inspirational, exciting, interesting, and thought-provoking. I'm going to take you through 3 problem spaces and how, conceptually, decentralized security can help you address some of these risks that your organizations are wrestling with. Now, many of your organizations currently have aging technology platforms, aging security platforms. I have a trivia question for you. What do computer passwords, the 8-track analog audio recording system, and the yellow smiley face have in common? They were all invented in the mid-1960s, and it's quite incredible that we're still reliant on some of these technologies today. If we look at username and password particularly, we know that 81% of data breaches reported around the world originate from a weak username and password being compromised. And this is a huge problem for organizations. Username and password is vulnerable to all of the traditional threats that we see happening around us, and it's really not adding value to your organization. And in response to this, we've all become accustomed with adding layer upon layer of other technologies to try and protect the fact that we do not trust the foundations. We all know what two-factor authentication is or multi-factor authentication is. And let's be honest, the only reason it exists is because we don't trust the foundations. And because of these increasing layers of complexity in our environments, the outcome is that we're damaging our customers' experience. So I put to you, if your organizations are still reliant on these centralized stores of user credentials, are they really safe? Our world today is vastly connected and integrated. We traditionally built our businesses and our computer environments a bit like Fort Knox. We would put them in one place and build many walls around them. And technology has evolved a long way, and that practice isn't working for us anymore. Our businesses need to look like and operate a lot more like shopping malls. There are many access points, there are many service providers, and there are people coming and going day and night. So how do we protect this expansive environment that's ultimately increasing the attack surface that the hackers can use to try and breach our networks? Both of those issues, both of those problem spaces that we just talked about, add to your exposure in the legislative and the regulatory requirements that are being burdened on your organizations day and day. We see globally regulations increasing. Recently, the NDB scheme came into effect in Australia, and it's all about how do we protect data privacy, in some cases data jurisdiction, and most importantly, how do we manage data breach? How do we respond to data breach? How do we notify data breach? And in Europe, we see a huge focus on how do we give the end user back control of their information so they can decide who can see their information, when and how long. So all of this is driving an urgency for all organizations to address these issues. And I ask you another question. How can you help your organization reduce their exposure to these liabilities? We see decentralization as a solution to this, part of the solution. I think many of the speakers have said it's not one silver bullet. But decentralization is a huge transformational component for your security platforms. We can look at taking these critical stores of information, whether it be personal data, health data, user account information, and we can apply sophisticated cryptographic puzzles over the top of this data to convert them into ciphers so they're meaningless. And then we use a practice of breaking apart those ciphers and distributing them. So the information is no longer available in one place and it can't be exploited by the hackers. Now, if we look at identity vulnerabilities, we remove the need to have a central store of username and passwords or device certificates. We've now eliminated the opportunity for a hacker to come in and do a single attack and do mass account breach. We've removed that risk. And through the sophisticated crypto puzzles, we actually prevent the traditional attacks. We take away the threat of farming and phishing. We take away the risk of password cracking. And even the social engineering and the common shoulder surfing on the bus on the way home. So we've now transformed the fundamental foundations of your security layer. And by doing that, we can help you simplify the environment. And the outcome for your customer is it's easier interactions and they feel safe and secure. When we look at the evolving perimeter, you have multiple channels and multiple services, multiple attack points. If it's connectable, it's attackable. So how can you isolate the risk across one service being attacked and all services being attacked? So through decentralization security techniques, you can provide that isolation. So if one particular channel does get breached for one account, for one application, for one user, it doesn't impact any other services for that user across your organization. And in doing that, we enable organizations to be more bold in the way that they drive forward their integrations with third parties, external solutions, and greater adoption of cloud services to drive your business efficiencies. And lastly, when we look at the legislation issue, the increasing burden that you're facing, by deploying these crypto puzzles, we can take any information and break it apart. So the hackers can no longer exploit the data. So even if they do get through this new foundational barrier that you have in the way that you're protecting both the devices and the user identities, even if they get inside the network, because let's face it, they most likely will, then we want to protect the critical information, whether it be PII, PHI, PCI data that's in your environment. That means that you're less liable to a lot of this legislation that's happening around the world. And ultimately, with some of these practices and the decentralization techniques, it actually aids you in the journey to giving control back to the end users. This is a very quick, abstracted view of decentralized technology. I'm around all day and we've got a booth next door. I'm not going to show you any marketing slides today. I'll save you from that. But please come and talk to us if you'd like to learn more about how decentralized security solutions could help you and your organizations address some of these risks, how we can help you think differently about tackling some of the common problems that you're all facing.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you, everyone. Now,